Yeah, the wine is delicious. Thank you.
Well, the first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what you do for the performance this evening in terms of your instrumentation.
Okay. All right, my name is Ryan Shea Smith. I'm from Seattle, Washington.
Not anymore.
Recently moved to Nashville thanks to Jonathan. And I'm playing keyboards tonight, and this is like one of my best friends in the world here, and we're going to play all kinds of music, all kinds of styles and songs we wrote, and maybe a couple covers.
Perhaps. My name's Jonathan Kingham. I live in Nashville. I'll be playing mostly guitar tonight, and we both sing, both write, and yeah, tonight we mostly do originals, partly because I just haven't learned anybody else's songs, but partly because songwriting's kind of our first love, and that's why we mostly play originals.
Now, when did you first realize that you had a passion for songwriting and performing?
Go ahead.
Let's see. My piano teacher I lived in Texas when I was growing up, and my piano teacher in 5th grade, I had written a song, and her name was Jane Glover. She's a sweetheart, and she sent my song into this Texas songwriting competition. I ended up winning this Texas state songwriting contest, and that was like, it took me a long time to get back into songwriting from there, but I guess that was my first taste of it. And my grandma was a songwriter too, and I grew up listening to her play all her slow jams at the parties growing up, and actually I ended up cutting some of her songs on my record, and so she's a big influence too.
She's a great writer. Real classic. Real classic.
Thanks.
For me, I think my older brother Nate introduced me to songwriting, I think, and to songwriters. Growing up, I listened mostly to R&B and to country, and my older brother Nate introduced me to songwriters like, James Taylor and the singer-songwriter kind of world, the Sean Colvins and that kind of thing, and so that kind of opened up my whole mind. There's a guy, David Wilcox, I really loved when I was first learning how to play guitar, and so he kind of turned. My older brother was a songwriter and actually wrote great songs when he was like 18, 19 years old.
He got a cut, didn't he?
I cut one of his songs on my first record, actually, and so that was where I first started being more aware of songwriting, and so then when I joined the Navy out of high school, and or when I was still in high school, and then when I was between tours of going out for 6 months, my buddies on the boat would try to connive me into going to this open mic. I was stationed out of Alameda, outside of San Francisco, and they'd say, "Kingham, you need to go sing, blah, 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 anybody can get up." And I would go and not do it. I'd just go and sit there. And then I realized one point, well, they're all so drunk that I could be really terrible and nobody would know. And so I got up and sang a song, and they all lied and said it was great. And so then I just started writing more songs, and I was still in the Navy. And a friend of mine, I got transferred up to Seattle area, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should send in a song for the song contest." And I thought, okay, well, you just send in a cassette, and
Cassette tape.
And I got picked for some reason, and then it was in Telluride, actually. And you send in a song, and then I can't remember exactly how it all went down, but you would play 2 songs on Wednesday or something, and then they funneled it down to, they invited 20 people out, and they funneled it down to the top 5, and then the top 5, you had to play 2 more the next day. And luck of the draw, I ended up winning, and so got to open for a bunch of people, and then it was then I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I won this really nice custom-built acoustic guitar worth like $5 or $6 grand, and I was like, well, I can get used to this. This is pretty cool. I should write more songs. And
was that the grand prize one?
It was a grand prize.
Yeah.
It was
like first place out of like 33,000 people.
Oh no, that was a different one. That was
the big one.
That was good. But no, that's Shanti guitar that I won.
Yep.
This guy makes one guitar every year for this songwriting contest in Telluride. He looks like Jerry Garcia. He's got this huge beard, and he comes out and he's just like, he's so happy to give you this $6,000 guitar, and I was so happy that
He'd be happy to know it's in perfect condition still.
It is. It sounds great. So he makes like 8 a year, and one of them he gives away to the song contest. It's unbelievable. So I thought, well, that was $20 to enter that, and I got a 6,000 guitar. That's a pretty good return on my investment. So I was still in the Navy. I came back from that. I drove back from Colorado. I took like a week of leave to go out and be in this contest, and I thought, man, this is cool. I could get down with this. And then I still had another year and a half in the Navy before I got out, and just kept writing. And yeah, I don't know. I think for me, that's where songs started. But
you guys are both multi-instrumentalists, correct?
More or less.
more, less.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Have either of you guys studied in a music program at a university level, or are you both self-taught?
More, less.
I studied a little bit on the university level. My parents put me in private lessons here and there when we could afford it and when it worked out. But I went to college and studied with a guy named Mark Seals. He was a great jazz pianist in Seattle, Washington, and I was only there for a short time, but it was pretty inspiring on a jazz level, and just the mechanics that go into trying to be a jazz artist. I felt like I was more of a songwriter, so I ended up kind of stepping out of the program and moving into more songwriting and doing music as a backup at the time. But I wouldn't say I'm a Juilliard major or I didn't go to Berkeley or any of that stuff. So I've been lucky enough to hang around people who, know what they're doing when it comes to jazz. So,
man, we used to play a lot of colleges, and I remember we played at Stockton University in California.
Wow.
And this is 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember the student activities programs, booked us and whatever, and we were on tour and went in to play, and there was this crew of this 5 or 6, they were probably 18 or 19-year-old kids. I think they were all under 19 was the stipulation. And they called themselves the Brubeck Experience or the Brubeck something or other. And
yeah, the Brubeck School of Jazz or whatever.
And I remember they were supposed to be the opening act, and they came in, they were like, oh, no, we're not opening. This is our school, blah, blah, blah. And we were kind of like, whatever, we don't care. I mean, we'll play before you guys. And so
thank God we did.
We went up and played our little set and played our little cheesy love songs and whatever. And then these 5 18-year-old kids got up there and just burnt the house down. And it was just it was amazing. We got schooled so bad. It was awesome. And to this day we talk about it. I mean, they were all not quite half our age, but almost half our age at the time. And just thought these kids have been studying in school, studying jazz their whole life, and unbelievable players. And we're just I'm like a one-legged dog trying to kick a ball down the street here. So I didn't study music in school, really. I took piano lessons 2nd, 3rd grade. That was about it. And I played the trumpet for 5 or 6 years growing up. And then I hated piano lessons, and a guy in my church taught me chords. And I was like, well, that's way cooler. I don't have to read the notes, and taught me how to play by ear and just play by chords. And I thought, well, that's fun. And so I had a band. I played keyboards in high school. We were called the Brutal Poodles. And and then, I got guitar.
That's when your rock days started.
Yeah, right. We were either going to be the Brillo Kitties or the Brutal Poodles, and we decided on the Brutal Poodles, and not sure if that was the right choice. But, played keyboards in that band, and I didn't even I got my first guitar for graduation from high school. My parents paid for half of my first guitar, and I had already signed up for the Navy, and I figured I couldn't take a piano on the boat, and so I got a guitar, and I would just sit in the hull and just woodshed like crazy because there's nothing else to do. And that was my schooling. I watch a lot of YouTube videos now, though. I'm learning how to play the pedal steel, and that's YouTube is
the cheapest teacher out there right now.
Unbelievable. Besides you, Ryan. I mean, you're only $60 an hour. So.
No, I wish, yeah.
Now, you guys just finished a run of dates, both opening for and performing with Toad the Wet Sprocket. Was it rewarding to be able to do double duty, performing your own material as well as with such seasoned musicians?
Yeah, definitely. I've been touring with them for a couple years now. Glenn Phillips, the lead singer of that band, is one of my best friends, and he and I have toured a lot together just as an acoustic duo, me backing him up, opening for him, and so we've done a couple hundred shows together, he and I, and then a couple of years ago he called me, and Toad kind of broke up for about 10 years and didn't tour much, and they were getting back together and going to do originally it was going to be like 20 dates or something. I think he said 20 or 25 shows, and he called me and said, hey man, you want to come out and play keyboards with us? And I said, sure, that sounds fun. And 20 turned into 30, turned into 50 and 70. We ended up doing 80 shows last year or something like that. And so then it became, play mandolin too, and play lap steel, and play guitar, and eventually I got way too many bags to check on the airlines now. And but it's been great. I end up opening about half the shows with them, and it's fun. It makes it kind of like a family affair where I go up and do a set. Sometimes they come up, and Glenn will come up and sing with me, or Dean and Randy will get up and play with me on a song or two, and then we take a break, and then everybody all comes back out and do the Toad set. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of their stuff. I always was growing up, and I mean, and Glenn being a good friend, it's like I love playing. The songs are great, and it's fun to play. It's fun to go out and do my own set where nobody knows any of my songs, and then go back and play with them the next set where everybody knows every single word to every song, and it's like getting to play the hits, even though they're not mine, is fun. So. And
I wasn't on that. John's been not solo doing that, so.
I couldn't afford him to come out with me.
Now, in addition to performing with high-profile national and international acts, Jonathan, you've also received some honors in songwriting competitions, like you'd mentioned before. How have those worked into your career as a musician, and have those been huge professional benchmarks for you?
You know, I mean, Ryan's won a couple in the last few years himself as well, and I think, I mean, the songwriting contests are, I wouldn't say they're huge professional benchmarks, but it's definitely, it helps, I think, in terms of, in a couple of different ways. There's one where, I won a really nice guitar out of one, and another one I won about $20,000 worth of equipment. Like the FedEx truck just kept driving up to my house every week. I'm like, oh, here's a keyboard. Oh, here's some microphones. Here, I mean, the prize package was pretty awesome. And one this was a while ago, but they actually used to give out a lot of money. And there was one where I won enough for a down payment on a house. So I ended up buying a house with the down payment money from a song contest. And in terms of professional, career runoff from those kind of things, I don't think it's that huge. It's nice to have a little sticker or something to put on albums and things like that. But
it may help with co-writes. Like people may want to, I want to co-write with Jonathan, or it doesn't hurt for sure.
No, definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, and I, the other thing I would say is I feel like the music business, having a career as an artist, I think a lot of new artists worry about having that one pivotal thing that happens in your career where everything after that is easy, but I was talking to somebody recently, somebody who was a publisher in Nashville, and he was just like, you know what, no one single performance, no one single meeting with one person is gonna completely blow up your career. And I feel like it's so much, especially now with the independent, we've always been, I mean, I had a development deal with Universal for a while, but being independent for 15 years, it's more about the long, slow drudgery of the. I'm just kidding. It's more about the long tail and the slow build of a career and making friends and fans, I guess you'd say. And I don't think there's one big winning a song contest or, going out and, I mean, even being out on the road with Toad is great. I get to play for 500 or 1,000 people a night, and it certainly helps with selling CDs and getting people on the Facebook page and the fan page and the web mailing list, but it's not one thing that makes it cool, I just did that 4 days with Toad, I'm gonna retire. And I mean, yeah, it's a
tough road I think everyone, no matter what level you're at, it's hard. It's a hard job as far as keeping it sustainable and staying encouraged and staying healthy, But if you love it, you don't you don't think twice about it. You just kind of stick with it, and it's like the career is kind of like a relationship. It's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and hopefully over the 365 days a year, it'll balance out. And you won't be in debt at the end of the year.
And I imagine you'd rather have the kind of career where instead of somebody paying 99 cents on iTunes for the big hit,
Yeah.
you have somebody that comes to see you every time you visit town and
Absolutely.
Buys each of your albums as they come out and
Yeah.
experiences them and as a whole, rather than somebody that's heard one song on Felicity and that's what they
Yep.
know of your career.
No, there was a great article, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it was, I think it was called 100 True Fans or something like that. And the whole theory, or 1,000 True Fans, and they were saying, if you can get 1,000 fans that will come through every time in the country, not in one town, but if you can find 1,000 people that are each willing to spend $100, so every time you come through on tour, if you come through twice, they buy a ticket at $20 and they buy the new CD, and they maybe buy a shirt or something. But if you can find 1,000 fans that are each willing to spend $100 a year, like that's $100,000 a year gross, but there's a living to be made. And the whole article is basically trying to target it and say, look, you don't have to have 1 million fans. You don't have to have 1 million downloads on YouTube or on iTunes or whatever. It's like, but a sustainable career is actually, I feel like the middle class of musicians, I don't think there's ever going to be as many superstars as there used to be. But I think there's a lot more room for the middle class of people going out and making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. It's a lot of work, and you got to be gone and constantly be working on new records and that kind of stuff. But I think that middle class is definitely more open and available. There's more parking slots.
Now, you said that you've been doing this for a decade and a half now, and I imagine you've seen tremendous growth in your ability to reach people using the internet that wasn't maybe available to you before. Can you talk a little bit about some ways that you've leveraged the internet to reach out to new markets?
I think it helps for booking, where people, if they hear about you and they want to kind of get a quick glimpse of what you do, genre-wise, or what your stage show's like. It's definitely kind of puts you in a situation where you can be accessible to people to get jobs. I feel like I haven't had a lot of success on the internet yet myself. I hope to someday.
Well, but I mean, you also, I know there's been times where I think that it's definitely as a tool it's made it easier in terms of, I can't remember what show it was recently, where the woman wanted to book you and you just sent her a link to the video you did from a live show at Jazz Alley in Seattle. She was like, oh, this is perfect, and she booked you instantly, versus, okay, I'm going to send you a press kit and it's got something and this and that, and it's got a glossy 8x10 black and white photo and this and that and a cassette and all that sort of thing. You can just email a link to YouTube or a video on your site and they can look at it and book it.
True, yeah.
So I feel like the tools like that
help a lot.
That combined with like Google Maps, I mean, are honestly, those tools, I think you're able to reach more people, but I still feel like it's, at the end of the day, it's about them actually seeing you live in person. And if that, getting in front of the right audience is still the struggle, I think, for any career. I mean, we have a friend in Seattle, a guy named Alan Stone, who's this killer soul singer.
Amazing, yeah.
And he did a live video in his mom's living room, and at this point it's got over 1 million views, and in the last year that video has enabled him to I mean,
he's a great example of how someone could really more or less go straight to the top and be independent and use the internet to kind of keep him supported and connect with his fans, and real inspiration for sure.
Great. Now, you're currently touring in support of your fourth record, Smooth Out the Lines. Did you write and record that in Nashville?
Yeah, I did a combination. When I was living in Seattle, I owned a studio up there, but I cut the basic tracks for that in Nashville and then took it back to my place in Seattle and did all the overdubs in Seattle. And then writing wise, I'd say I wrote about half of it in Nashville, about half of it in Seattle. Wrote a couple songs with Ryan up in Seattle, a guy Scott Kerpane, and then a couple writers in Nashville, and then a couple solo writes. So kind of a mix. And then you cut your newest record. You cut at Bear Creek in Seattle.
Woodinville, Washington, in Bear Creek. I cut a jazz record about a year or so ago. But I'm in another band too. So while John's been out with Toad, I've been out with a guy named Michael Williams, who's just an incredible guitar player, songwriter, and we've been out. It's called the Michael Williams Band, opening for Johnny Lang and Buddy Guy for the past year.
Oh man, awesome.
And we put out a new record called Fire Red that was produced by Eddie Kramer, who also produced the Pixies, one of their records, and toured on that for about a year. So just getting off that, and he's off the Toad tour, and now I'll probably be out with John for the next year because he's putting out a new record. So
now you've started recording that new record?
I got basics for 4 songs or 5. I'm gonna do an EP, and then I've got another whole full length, kind of more jazz, funk, not funk really, but
soulful jazz.
A swampy, soulful jazz. That's good. Record in the can, or not in the can, but written. So I've got the EP hopefully come out, and I think I'm gonna do a CD release tour in February for that, and then in the summer release the other one. So
you bring Cindy out with you at all for that?
I'd hope to, if she's down. But
yeah, it's incredible. He wrote a bunch of songs with Cindy Morgan, who's an incredible writer, and they co-wrote these just cool tunes.
Spooky. They're pretty spooky.
Yeah, they're nice. Just in time for this. You should release that now for
Halloween.
Yeah.
So, in addition to being out on the road, performing for audiences and those kind of things, you've also been active in songwriting workshops, including mentoring and guiding students here in Ohio. Can you tell us about the Songwriting Made Simple program and your participation in that?
Sure. Ryan and I started doing that. We were both kind of doing it independently, and he was doing a lot of piano lessons, and a lot of his piano students were young and didn't really care about piano, but he figured out that they love to write songs. And so he was kind of doing that, and I was doing songwriting workshops with a lot of high school kids, and we kind of decided, man, we should
model it up.
Yeah, we should focus this. And when we were living in Washington State, there was a whole program the Washington State did. It was called Washington State Roster of Teaching Artists, and so they'd never had songwriters on it. It was a lot of percussion or pottery or dance or whatever, all different disciplines. And so we jumped through all those bureaucratic government hoops in order to get certified to be on the roster of teaching artists for Washington State, and kind of honed it in on the curriculum and all of that. But yeah, it's awesome. We love working with. We did some this week. We were in Wilmington, and we did one with college and college students and adults. Not that college students aren't adults, but college students and adults. And then we did one with middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, 8th graders. But yeah, we get them. We work with them on song structure. They write the chord progression. They write the melody, and then we do free association lyrical exercise. They write all the words, and they figure out what it wants to be about, and we help them shepherd them through that. And then usually we try to get them as part of our residency when we do our concert we played at the Murphy Theater last night, and in the middle of our set we bring them up on stage and they sing their song that they wrote, and kind of bring the whole thing full circle. So it's a blast. So
now, have you found that in your own songwriting that personal experiences are what catalyzes you, or do you do third person sort of narrative writing as well?
I'd say both. I mean, if you're writing by yourself, a lot of times it comes from something you've experienced. Maybe you're writing if you're writing with somebody else, for example, sometimes if they have an experience, it's easy, and if you know that person, it's easy to kind of empathize with their situation, and so it really depends. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. Both. I mean, I feel like when I first started writing, I felt like everything had to be completely autobiographical and it had to be about a direct personal experience. But I have a pretty boring life, and so I reached the limit of what I could write about, I felt like. And then when I started spending more time co-writing and writing in Nashville, especially, and when you're writing for other projects, especially in the country world, I mean, a lot of that stuff is third person. I mean, it's, you know, I was fortunate to grow up in a farm town listening to country music, so I understand the genre really well. But it's I think there's a certain freedom that comes with being willing to write third person, non-autobiographical stuff, because then you can, the subject range is a lot wider. And I remember when I came to the realization that, like, you know, Stephen King doesn't kill people, but he's good at writing about it. Tom Clancy doesn't cruise around in a submarine all day, but he's good writing about it. And people love those books, and so there's value in that. And it's pretty liberating to feel like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna write a song about, I don't know, Johnny Cash didn't actually kill anybody and go to prison for it, but he sang about it, people loved it. So it gives you definitely a wider range of topics you can shoot at. So
now, you know, additionally, it sounds like you guys have had plenty of experiences to write with other artists and be mentored by other artists. How critical do you think it is to not be sort of limited to your own experience, but be constantly challenging yourself by being catalyzed by others in making leaps and bounds in your own growth as a songwriter?
Well, I'd say, I mean, I think just in general within music, just the diversity is kind of what keeps it exciting. I mean, I know John produces and writes with other artists in all genres, and I do the same. And I like going from jazz to rock to country. So to me, and co-writing and collaborating kind of keeps me in the game to a certain degree, because I get bored of myself. And after a while, I get bored of my style and kind of what I have to bring to the table. And but you share that with someone else, and together it makes the things a little more exciting. And to me, I think it's key to kind of, not everyone's like you, so you work in a group or in a group environment, you tend to kind of develop a more, I guess, universal theme that connects you to listeners. And so.
And I will say, being in a community like Nashville where there's a lot of old timers that are the savvy veterans, I mean, I feel like I've been fortunate to get to work with some really great old school songwriters, and the craft of writing songs is, I mean, it's timeless. We were listening to Cole Porter on the drive over here today, and it's just like, man, that old catalog. It was, I mean, it's a different world now, granted, and you've got, you know, different genres, dance and house and all that stuff. But for me, my love is that classic songwriting, and there's certain things that I've learned from working with some of these older songwriters in Nashville that you just, I've learned so much. I've been really, really fortunate to be taken under the wing by a couple of them early on, and now I feel excited to be able to, not that I'm anywhere near that level, and I feel like it's a constant, continual, eternal quest, but to be able to share some of those tools with younger kids now and let them know, hey, it's not necessarily songwriting. One isn't for certain chosen few. You know, you can do it. It's a muscle that you have to exercise, but there are certain tools you can have that will help get through those writer's blocks and help. I think as our job as songwriters is to communicate, and there's certain tools that you can learn that will help make that easier. And I feel super fortunate to have and still get to work with some just unbelievable writers.
The kids have that inspiration, you know. I mean, a lot of the writers, it's post-inspiration. Once you get that inspiration of maybe a great hook or a melodic line that you think is like nice, what do you do with it from there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the experience and some of the, you know, having that craftsmanship about how to build out a song and those structural concepts help a lot. But nothing really beats that initial inspiration. And when we do these songwriting workshops, it's like it's just filled with just cool ideas off the bat, and it's kind of like, it reminds you that, you know, that I've been writing with some artists that are younger than me, and I feel like we're learning so much teaching these workshops, because you think you get into some kind of a pattern about how you like to write your songs, and you get around some people who are just kind of go off that initial inspiration, and it's nice to kind of tap into that and then help kind of guide it and structure it.
Well, tonight you guys will be performing at Rumbleseat Wine in Kettering, Ohio, and what do you have planned for your performance this evening?
Thrash metal extravaganza.
That's right.
What did you say? Digital Underground meets Slayer? I think that's a pretty accurate description.
Yeah, we can pull that off.
Digital Underground meets Slayer with an acoustic guitar and a piano.
Yeah, that'll work.
No, it should be, it's kind of an acoustic folk, jazz, R&B, smooth out on the pop tip with a small amount of country thrown in for good measure.
Yeah, and tonight's a cool example of how we had a show last night at Murphy Theater, and tonight was a night off, and these folks kind of created a show here tonight for us to do, so it gives us something to do instead of having a day off, and days off on the road aren't good, really, so.
Well, they're good, but.
They'll pay the bills.
That's true.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Have a good show.
And there's cool places like the Rumbleseat, in Dayton that I really love.
Yeah, they have really good wine, I heard.
They have good wine.
Yeah.
There's nice polished concrete floors. I really appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Please tell your friends about this. This is an awesome place, and yes, thank you for opening it up and having us tonight.